Welcome back. Well, now we turn to elections. As you may have seen the news, which the INEC chairman did announce yesterday about those political parties who have been cut off from the list. So from INEC's perspective, they no longer exist. But of course, there'll always be a lot of rancor about some of those decisions. Well, we've got Dr. Mohammed Lekki here with us. He is the INEC's National Commissioner in charge of Akwa Ibom, Cross River, and Delta. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today, sir. Well, this decision that INEC has taken, I'm sure you also have heard that those political parties have said they don't understand why INEC will be in a hurry because they say that the election cycle is still on. Local government elections have not even been held in many of these states. So why was INEC hasty?
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Chamberlain. I think the political parties, they need to study the provision of the Constitution very carefully. We, INEC, work within the ambit of what the legal framework allows it to do. What we have done is the correct thing to do. We're never hasty. It was quite timely. The general elections have come and gone. All the cases related to general elections have been concluded. All the court-ordered rerun elections have been concluded as at last week or so. So everything has to do with general elections have been completed and finished. And so we're in a better position to go ahead and implement the provisions as in the fourth alteration of the Nigerian Constitution. So it's nothing hasty. Now, INEC is not directly responsible for what happened at the SEC State Electoral Commission level, which some of them may be referring to. The only local government in which INEC does election is the FCT. And all political parties are also have equal responsibility to participate in this election. And so we are fully incompatible in compliance with what the law says we should do, and that's exactly, what we have done. If there are any issues, with this by any political party, they know exactly what they need to do. I wouldn't say this is long overdue. We are not in any way hasty. We are doing it as exactly at the time that is much more appropriate in compliance with what the law says. That's exactly what we have done.
When you allude to the fact that perhaps some of those parties did not study the provisions of the law, one would also ask, how well did INEC carry them along in this process? Or perhaps INEC expected them to know?
Well, this issue of carrying them along, these political parties do not exist in a vacuum. They know the law, they are a creation of the law, and they must be compliant with the law. And in part of our procedures, they were informed, given 21 days notice before we do an assessment. Sometimes, early this year, this assessment, they were told. Some of them did not make themselves available for the assessment, which in itself is a dereliction of their responsibilities. And they have been informed about their performance in terms of our findings with regards to their compliance with the requirement for registration. And so there's really nothing done in secrecy. There was no need for us to call a meeting of all political parties and discuss whether or not INEC should do its rightful duties of assessing them, their compliance with what the law says they should do. So they have been duly informed about their status in terms of their compliance with their criteria for registration.
So we understand that one of the parties that seem to have scaled through, that's the APP, the Action People's Party. They have a case in court. And, some of these other parties are actually looking at that case to see if that might, influence what just happened with INEC. So is there a possibility that if that case swings to APP's side, that might affect this decision that INEC just made?
Well, I think that is a bridge that is yet to be reached, and then we'll cross it when we get there. As you know, INEC is a very law-abiding institution. We have never really disobeyed, court order, even though some of them we feel that some of these things needs to be, challenged. And maybe in one or two cases we have taken issues in going for, appealing a decision that we think is not in consonant with our understanding of the applicable law. But in the case of the APP, well, they are challenging INEC's right to do what INEC is supposed to do according to the Constitution. Also, we have to wait and see we cannot prejudge what the judge in this case is going to do. We will await it. There'll be consequential action as a result of that, either on the part of INEC or on the part of other political parties. But I think the important thing is that there needs to be discipline, in the political space. Everybody needs to adhere to the rules, sort of looking for caveats, not to adhere to the rules.
Behind a law such as this is usually the talk about the purpose, what this will do to governance, to democracy, to the electoral system. So this cleanup, as some have termed it, what will be the effects on democracy, the electoral system in the country?
Well, the effect of this decision has been taken by INEC, which is fully compatible with what the law says INEC should do. It's subject to different kinds of interpretation depending on the perspective in which you look at it. Well, we have just done what we are expected to do as an institution, as provided for by the legal framework. In terms of governance, but clearly everything that is electoral in nature is related to good governance. I mean, there have been a lot of people who have been complaining and talking, as we have done a major stakeholder review post-election of 2019 general election. And a lot of things that came out of this election review, which INEC undertook, was the fact that most people feel that we have too many political parties. And clearly on the part of INEC, this has put a lot of stress, INEC, in terms of, some of the things that we do. And we cannot use all the money in this country to be doing, election because of the burden of election. So perhaps this, cleanup, which is done because of what the Constitution said that we should do, we also have some repercussion in terms of having, reasonably good, logistics, issues, challenges that have faced our election, and the manageability of the burden of our election in terms of the weight that it puts on the resources that are available to this country, and particularly to, to INEC. In terms of good governance, I mean, I'm sure people can find a way. We don't need to be registering political parties in the millions just because we want to have expression and vent our rights to political participation. There are many others. We must learn to find a way to work with others. There are many political parties that are available. Need to coalesce them. Just like the issue of the bank, when I think was Soludo was the CBN governor at that time, did some kind of a tsunami in which a lot of things were cleaned up at the banks. And we can see the banks are more resilient, stronger. They are doing much better today. Can you imagine we have a mom and pop bank situation in those days, and a lot of them were failing, and people were running up and down, worrying about their deposits and all that. So there was some sanity that comes. So perhaps if we play by the rules, I believe when we play by the rules, there'll be sanity. And good governance will be a clear derivative of such a sanity in our political space.
Is that INEC's ultimate intention to see that all of these political parties are coalesced such that they can be a lot stronger?
Well, it is not a deliberate policy of INEC as if we have a design to have a definite number of political parties we have in mind. We are working towards, the answer. Clearly not. We are simply just carrying on what we are supposed to do. But you should know that one of the results framework of a political party is its expression in terms of the vote it has to show on the ground. We must look at the electoral space. We must look at it and see an atlas of map which tells you the result. These political parties do not exist in a vacuum. They exist so they can canvass for votes, they can win election. And so the Constitution is very clear. They should win election, they should show a present. You cannot be answering present and then you are absent to make yourself present when you need to count. Though they must count. And so the issue is that, are they there on the electoral map? If you look at the atlas of map of result, can they find expression? Can they be found there? If they cannot be found, there is a requirement of the law that they should be found in any of the constituencies, over 1,558 constituencies, electoral constituencies in the country. And the political party cannot locate itself even in the minutest of the electoral constituencies, which is at the ward level. Then one should begin to wonder whether that political party has a right or desire to exist, given the intense, resource implication that it has, on the work that INEC does. So this thing needs to be looked at very carefully. And in fact, I think the press have even done this thing, before INEC, by going there to look at where is your expression on the atlas of map of results, following any particular election. If they're not there, they should also question, what are you doing? Why are you canvassing for vote? They're not motivating or mobilizing voters to come out to vote for them. You look at the issue of voter participation is very low. It's the responsibility of political parties to mobilize people to come out and vote. They're not coming out to vote. About 35, hardly 40% people come out to vote during any election, at best. So, that's the role of responsibility of political parties, and that is not happening. So there must be a day of accountability, and what happened yesterday is part of that accountability. They must live up to that, and they have to go back, either join other groups or do whatever they can do to express their political aspirations.
Is this the plan of INEC to have this kind of exercise after every election cycle?
Well, I can expect that it should be, yes, after every election cycle, because that's what the law, that is when you can look at the atlas of a map of results and see how people did, how they did not do. I also have to do, we also do administrative stuff by looking at their a requirement for registration. You must have an office in FCT in Abuja. You must have, your NEC must have a federal character nature. About 2/3 of them must respect people from other states. There are so many things that we have that we also need to do. So this is the time, this is actually the best time, to do this. As a responsibility of INEC, it's more convenient to have this thing done after a general election, because by then all the elections have been concluded. You will know who win, either at the ward level, at the chairmanship level, at the state assembly level, at the federal assembly level, at the senate level, at the presidential level. So that is a good time to actually do those assessments as prescribed according to the first revision of the Constitution. So one should expect that will be happening. And 4 years is quite a long time for a seriously minded political party to put its act together and go out there, canvass for votes, and win votes, and have its presence in the electoral map of Nigeria.
Okay.
So certainly, clearly, after every electoral, general election, we do this.
Okay. Are there plans then to register other political associations as parties who may have sent applications to INEC?
Well, that's a good question. The Senate is looking at reforming the Electoral Act going forward, and these are some of the issues that we need to be looking at. I mean, that's one of the things why we have so many people. It's so easy to register a party, so it doesn't take, in fact, you can even register a party without waiting for INEC to say whether or not, you can go to court and force registration upon INEC. Yeah, so we'll be looking at all these things. We're going to the National Assembly as part of their readiness to look at the electoral reform and review and take all these things on board, so that it's not shouldn't be something that any person can just wake up and decide. We have so many parties already available. You should be able to find accommodation in existing framework of parties that exist within the country. So that's a good question, and I think it's a challenge, because people can just wake up tomorrow and go back and come up with some name, some acronym, and then they're applying for registration. In fact, as we speak, before this exercise, there are many hundreds of associations who are waiting for registration. But I think there has to be a way where the line is drawn, but that is a legal matter, and we'll leave that to the legislature to pass the appropriate clauses in the electoral law to address these kinds of challenge.
So does that suggest then that those hundreds that are waiting to be registered may not be registered until the electoral laws are amended?
Well, it's a continuous process. It's not that they may not be registered. There is a procedure that we take in making sure they're registered. We go through that process, and once they are compliant, then we'll do the needful, and they'll be registered. We're hoping that by the time we get to that point, or even at the time we get to that point, there will be some changes in the electoral law that allows us to have a better handle on this issue of where the easiness and the multiplicity of people coming around to want to register political parties. It is a challenge, and I think we need to confront it and deal with it.
So did INEC make submissions concerning these amendments that we expect or that should happen with the National Assembly about the electoral laws?
Yeah, if you remember, during the 8th National Assembly, INEC made very copious submission, but we know the history of that, what happened. And now we have yet another opportunity, which is coming up, being led by the 2 senators, and the National Assembly, and INEC is ready. We have harvested a lot of issues from the extensive post-general election, 2019 election review exercise that we did. We consulted people wide, including the media, which most of you participated. We harvested a lot of points on these issues, and we are ready. We are pretty much, put our acts together in terms of the things we need to put forward. Even in the next several weeks, we are going further to do another stakeholder forum on the electoral reform to harvest more, and then go into some kind of an arrangement with National Assembly, and then make our submissions once they start calling for submissions. So we are ready to take all these things forward, for sure.
Some of these political parties that have been deregistered say that they were supposed to get the verification reports from INEC, but that didn't happen. Is that the case?
No, that is not true. We're not asking them to go and remedy the areas in which they are at fault, but all we're expected to do is to inform them about the outcome of our verification, and we have done so. So we have sent them the letters and given them the reports about their performance. We don't need to call them to a meeting and start to discuss this thing. I mean, we have done the verification. It was done on an individual basis. Party, INEC, and the party concerned are scheduled, and they have been sent reports of their performance, so they know exactly where they stand.
There are some other recommendations in the Constitution about administration of these political parties which also fall under the responsibility of INEC. For instance, how the parties administer their funds and all of that. INEC is supposed to get reports from the political parties, audited reports and all of that, which should be submitted to the National Assembly. What's the plan to comply with this part of the law?
Well, that's a question you should direct to the political parties. INEC has done a lot of things to get them to submit their books of accounts. If you look at the report, the compliance is abysmal, and we report this to the National Assembly as duly completed. We have just finished another cycle of that. We're going to submit it to National Assembly. I also post those things on INEC's website. The compliance is a dodgy arrangement where political parties are on this a game of subterfuge, in hide and seek, and they're not fully compliant. People will tell you they don't have the records. You set up an appointment to meet with them. We have external auditors who are credible, who goes over there to look at this, but the books are not readily available. It's a very big challenge, but they're not fully compliant. I will have the reports, and we'll go to National Assembly. We will also be required to publish this in which INEC will do. So I think that's a question to be asked of the leadership or so political party. Ask them to what extent are they compliant in furnishing INEC with the financial record they're supposed to give to INEC, and let them speak to it, and why are they not doing that as expected by the law? So there
One
are
would
many
expect
indiscipline and rascality going on in the electoral space.
Yeah, but one would expect that being the umpire over all these political parties, one would expect that it's in the purview of INEC to compel the political parties to obey the law. What happens in the event that they do not obey these laws, just as you're saying? What's going to happen?
Well, this is clearly where we are today. These are some of the requirements of meeting your registration. So these are some of the administrative stuff, like having an office. Some of them have an office, and you go there, you can't find the address they give to you. It's not available. The place is shut down. And so you can't even give them the letter. So you drop it there because that's exactly, or you paste it on the web because that's exactly what they say the address is. The address is there, but they are not present in the place. So what do you mean by compelling? How else do we compel it? This is exactly what we are doing. So we go there, we want to look at your books, audit the book, and you do not comply. So you're already failing in the requirements of your compliance. And so these are going to count again. So it has come home to roost now. So these failures to comply is now coming together to have its desired consequences on their continued existence as political parties.
So speaking of some of these so-called smaller political parties, there have been allegations, about their conduct. Some allege that they serve as, annexes to some other bigger political parties, so such that when elections come, they have a way of, breaking the votes of other parties, and a lot of other allegations. And you say, from time to time, we also participate, in some of these post-election reviews. Did you find any such irregularities as to, the conduct of these so-called smaller political parties?
Well, INEC is not in a position to make those kinds of conclusions. We also hear about them as narratives on the electoral space. We have had things saying that election days, polling units are transactional units. So we've had such kind of expression as we're doing this review of the post-election, review that we just finished sometime August, last year. Yeah, so we have those things. But really we're not in that game to start to read the minds of political parties, why they exist, whether they are fronting for other bigger parties or not. But what we focus upon is what the law allows us to do, like what we have just done, the chairman of INEC has just done yesterday. I wouldn't say with the big hammer down on those people who were found to be wanting in terms of requirement for their continued existence as political parties in this country. And that we have done. And we'll continue to instill and make sure that we are compliant with the law and get them to be compliant with what the law says they should do.
Some of these parties will also say that, they are here not because of a fault of theirs. They lean, for example, on the issue of voter apathy, and they show you figures. And they say, on one hand, we're not providing security during elections. So the fact that we don't record as much votes might be as a result not of our failing, but a failing of the system. So looking at that, for example, the issue of voter apathy, I would also like to find out, has INEC been able to look into some of these reasons that are out of those political parties' hands that made them fall into this, if I would say, this trap?
Well, can the political party at least adduce reasons as to what exactly they are doing more effectively rather than pointing fingers at the wrong, direction? The issue of voter mobilization is really political parties' affair. We do voter education. We take people through the mechanics of what they need to do, how they need to present themselves and vote. We set up all the structures for voting so people have pleasant voting. But the issue of getting out the votes, It's based on your manifesto. Now, how many political parties subject themselves to political debates? How many? And what is the media? And that's really a media and political party interface that should actually take place. How many? I'm sure most of you have been trying hard, and they are dodgy of coming out to do political debate. So that will fire up the electorate to go out there and vote and say, yeah, these people have very good program for us. Let us go there and support them. We don't see that happening as it happens in many other countries. So we need to be talking about that. Those are the issues we're looking at. Whether you are small or big, you must have a manifesto that speaks to the yearnings of Nigerians. So how well are you prosecuting that manifesto? What platform have you subjected yourself to so that people can interrogate you and ask you questions? What are your credibility, the people you are putting forward to run for this election? We also have narratives along on the electoral space of the credibility of many participants. I mean, these are issues. And this is where I think the media probably have an advantage over any other institution. By taking them on, subjecting them to debate, compelling them to participate, to come forward and debate their manifesto, and people interrogate and know them, their credibility, what they stand for. Their results they are expected to deliver on the electoral space to Nigerians to better their life for good governance. These are issues that need to be debated, and that's a political, party, responsibility. It's not whether you are small or big. So we find that in most cases there are a lot of challenges why people should not come for debate. They are scheduled, people don't show up, political parties don't participate. They need to participate. People need to be responsible. And as a political party, and they need to make sure that they step up the plate and they do the right thing and give people a very pleasant, political experience in Nigeria, because they are the main beneficiaries of votes that are cast. They're the ones that go into office. They are our senators, they are our House of Representatives, they are our governors, and so on and so forth. So they need to actually leave us to this responsibility and not looking for ways to be passing the blame. So they need to actually be accountable. So you, the media, need to actually take the accountability issue for them. How accountable are you? How well have you lived your manifesto? How well have you made yourself available for interrogation, for debate, for people to actually know who you are as a person, your character, as well as performance? What has the party done? What are they going to do? Why should we believe in you? These are things we should be asking them. And it's a media political party interface issue. And we need to be going in that direction as well.
It's a job, a thing that, the media has done, the media is doing, and the media will continue to do. As a matter of fact, maybe the lawmakers should also consider making it compulsory for them to attend political debates, televised debates, so that they can talk about some of these things. And as those amendments are going on, I think it won't be a bad idea if everybody throw their weight behind all of those. Yes, politicians are the ones amending the law. So, of course, if it's what the people want, it should also be part of it, one reckons. But speaking about election management and curbing voter apathy, what is your thinking? What would you like to see about election management? I know that the Commission did say the country needs to have a conversation about election management if we don't want to see election being postponed from the day it was supposed to happen, maybe a week or two moving forward.
Well, at the heart of election management is the legal framework. So we need to sort of interrogate the legal framework and do the needful. And INEC, as a commission, has a set of ideas that we'd like to share and put forward to the National Assembly to reform our Electoral Act as it presently exists. I'm sure that if that is done, we're looking at a whole lot of things, including issues of logistics. Now, right now, everybody that INEC is dependent upon seems to want to take advantage of INEC. If you depend on Nigeria, of road transport, we have cases where money has been paid, to transporters and they don't show up. I've monitored election in the state. I don't want to mention where I've gone by the riverside, by the boats, waiting for boats that never, that will never arrive, even though they have been paid the day before. So it's why people are always gaming, scheming, INEC and sabotaging the effort of INEC. So we need to find a way to do things a bit differently. There's an attitudinal issue also. We need to have trust and change our attitude. If you are paid money to deliver your boats and your transport, and through your organization, you sign on, you should live up to it. And when you don't live up to it, there should be consequences. And I think INEC should actually be taking some of these National Union of Road Transport people who fail in a particular election to court for frauds. Because they're supposed to show up. When they don't show up, you're taking the money, there's a breach. And there should be consequences for breaches. And so we need to go in that way. I think INEC we need to be actually taking a lot of people to court over this sort of issue. I think this area in which we need to also step up the plate ourselves. We cannot allow people to go scot-free for things that they do. There should be punishment for actions. And I think that's one thing. This is not about electoral malpractices, as we know about it, taking people who are fraudulent, who have hijacked the ballot boxes, who have concocted results or wherever to call. But there are all these other supportive administrative, factors that make election good or bad, like logistics, transportation, and people who are making supplies to INEC. All these breaches that are contractual of nature, we should go ahead and make sure that people abide by this contract, and there should be punishment for breach of this contract. These are things that we need to do differently going forward in terms of managing, our election.
And this is a conversation that we will have, of course, have a lot more time devoted to this, because it is indeed a very serious matter, especially when taxpayers' funds, money are involved in all of this. But we do appreciate your time talking to us this morning, Dr. Mohammed Lekki, INEC National Commissioner in charge of Akwa Ibom, Cross River, and Delta. We'll turn attention into another matter when we return in a moment. Stay with us.